Hello everyone. So, after the previous video in which I decided to make a character from my comic strip, this is April, and I did it in 3D, I decided why not give it a shot in 2D. So here is my adventures in 3D, no, not 3D, 2D animation, pixel animation in Aseprite. And I've not really done this before, so you're kind of seeing me doing some experimenting. And I thought one of the first things I could do was just draw in sort of this block stock figure. The idea here was just to block out the major bits. And you can see how I'm using different colors for the legs. Even the far leg there, it's a little bit of a darker red, but the whole idea here is to give each moving part of the body its own unique color, just so it's a lot easier to see what goes where, because a few times when I've tried this before, I did have a little bit of trouble. If you have lots of limbs that are overlapping, like if this was all the same color, if you had like that arm, down in that position there where it's sort of overlapping the leg there, I mean, that'd just be one big mass of blue, and then you can't figure out what's going on at all. So I guess spoiler alert here. Eventually, I have decided this might not be the best approach. However, for just getting my toes dipped into it, just for understanding the whole basic idea of how to lay out a character, how to make it move, how to see where all the little pieces are, this works fairly well. And what I did later was try to draw over it with my character once I had this sort of a basic dummy model going. But anyhow, let's continue with this guy for now. And you can see me adjusting it slowly as I go frame by frame. Here's the walking left animation. And I'm using a little bit of reference in a window. You don't see it on screen here, but it's over on my other monitor. And I'm doing my best to make sure the legs match the legs of my reference, the arms match the arms of my reference, and I'm also moving the body up and down slightly. Not very much, just a little bit of a hop whenever that one leg is straight down and the other is up in the air like that. Because when you walk, you do have this natural bobbing motion to your body, and if you leave that out, then it looks a little bit odd and stiff. And I also added a little bit of a shadow to the ground there. That's just give me an indication of where the ground plane is. It helps to line everything up. And you can also see I'm using the onion skinning here to match frames that come later with frames that come earlier. But I've turned that off at this point, and now I'm just going through the process of playing the animation, cleaning things up a little bit, and just doing that over and over again until I'm happy with the whole basic silhouette of the body. And if you're sort of new to this like I am, you might want to try this blocking approach for your first couple of attempts, because it is a lot easier than just sort of jumping in and trying to draw the entire thing as if it's a finished picture. And we are just sort of flipping back and forth, and you can see here are some of these static poses that I created. This is just giving me the sense of proportions for the overall figure, and also to be used as sort of a starting point for an idle animation if you have the character just standing looking in a particular direction. Because another thing I was thinking of when I was putting all this together is wouldn't it be useful to use this in a video game? And I've been getting into Godot, among other game engines lately. I was using Unity before, but lately I've been going into Godot, mostly because it's free, but I also like the fact that it's open source, and that means you can play around with the source code yourself if you want to. Anyhow, once you create in order to create a video game, you need to have the video part, which is all these marvelous works of art that I am endeavoring to learn. And you need to have your characters doing something, and that involves art and animation. So here is the back pose. You can see me starting the walk from behind animation. This is a little bit more difficult in some senses because you have to be very careful with those legs. They don't go side to side very much, but they are very precise. Like, you're not dealing with too many pixels, but you do need to make sure they're in the right place. And you can sort of see their that back foot, it crosses in a little bit, right just a little bit past the center line. And you have to make sure that you get that working in order for the walk animation to look properly. Because it's very easy to have it, the two legs almost look like pistons going up and down in an engine. And that's not a very effective walking style. At least it doesn't look very realistic when you watch a figure do it. Anyhow, you might have also noticed that these sprites are 64 pixels tall. That's if you include all the empty space above and below as well. I know for your typical, I guess, classic era sprite-based video games, they tend to be smaller. They're only, I think, 8 high. No, I think 16 high for like the really old Final Fantasy games and Dragon's Quest. And I think when, if you look at more the SNES era, you tend to get the 32-bit high. Those are kind of hard to draw, and they also are very tiny, very hard to make out what's going on. I like these slightly larger ones because you can be a little bit more expressive. It's easier to sort of give your characters a little bit of definition. And you also get to have a little bit more fun with the art side of it too, because when you're doing the really small ones, you get very, it's very almost engineered. You have very straight lines, very blocky forms, and you have to do a lot of sort of impressions in order to make it look right. It looks, I guess, a lot more stiff and awkward is what I'm trying to say. With these larger sprites, you have the freedom to add in a few more curves and make the lines a little bit more graceful, and sort of express the art a little bit better that way. Anyhow, I've just finished off the walking away from us animation, and here's the walking towards us animation. Same idea with the legs crossing just a little bit in front, and that leg that goes backwards. You have to remember the knee is bent, so you actually lose the bottom part of the leg when it tilts up, and you only see like the little toes poking at the very back. And another thing to watch is the arms, because the arms go opposite of the legs, which is something that I messed up a couple of times. You have to make sure when your left leg goes forward, the left arm does too. And when the right leg goes backward, the right arm does as well. And so those are always opposites. And you have to keep those in sync. Anyhow, you can see now that I've finished with the basic blocking in form. And this is my strategy here. Start with the block in, get happy with the block in, and then draw my character on top of it. And you can see I'm starting with sort of some basic bold shapes. And I'm doing a little bit of shading, and I guess this is a little bit, I guess I got a little bit carried away with the shading. Maybe not carried away is the right word. I know a lot of the more classic sprites like to go for a more bold look with very clear colors. I guess I have a little bit more of a sort of painting idea going on here, where originally I just wanted to have a couple of shade colors, but I eventually ended up with a lot more. I guess it kind of works. And if you look at sort of the classic sprites, like from games like Chrono Trigger or Final Fantasy or a lot of the other SNES era games, they do have a fairly wide sprite palette on the sprites themselves. But it is different from the bold graphic look that you get in a lot of sprites. Anyhow, you can see me drawing the new character on top of the old block in there, and I've just moved to the side here. I believe I'm going for the second frame here, and you can see everything's in a slightly different position, and I've just moved the first character that I've drawn off to the side so that I have something to copy. And you see I'm doing a combination of copying and pasting that character over top of the new pose, but also drawing new limbs too. So you can see those legs are in a new position. They're partly copy and pasted versions of the old legs, but also partly newly drawn as well. It's one of the nice things when you're dealing with pixels. You only have a small number of pixels to deal with, so you can just copy, paste, shift something over, and then muck around with it with the drawing tool to make it look a little bit different, which is what I'm doing here. And I think we're on to the next frame. It's the same idea here. We're just copying the sprite over, and you can see with the head there, I just shifted it a little bit to the side. I have it slightly to the left for 3 frames and then slightly to the right for 3 frames, and that gives sort of a realistic head back and forth motion, because whenever you're walking somewhere, your head isn't perfectly stiff. It's always sort of moving side to side a little bit, so capturing a little bit of that in the animation helps with the realism a lot. And here you can see I am fiddling with the tail. This is something I was a little bit confused about, because I guess most of the people I know don't have tails, so you don't really get a lot of good reference as to what one should look like. And for the first little bit here, I just tried to make it up. I thought that I could fake it. So eventually I did start looking at some reference for tails too. And yeah, see right now it's a little bit too much of an S-curve. It's hanging down a little bit too far. But I'm gradually making it longer and having that sway be a little bit less dramatic. And one of the great things, if you want to copy real tails, is actually looking at ponytails. And that's the reference I was eventually looking at that I described. Because ponytails, they also bob up and down. Like, they don't have like a rigid bone, well I guess semi-rigid bone running down the middle of it. But they do sort of have the same effect, and especially if they're big and puffy, sort of like the ponytail you see on the back of her head here. So yeah, for going forward, when I was doing the back of the head and the tail, I was kind of doing both of those at the same time. So you can sort of see them in sync. I did want to put them out of sync a little bit. However, the trouble is, when you only have 6 frames to deal with, you don't have a lot of wiggle room with that respect. So anyhow, I'm going through, I'm adjusting the shading. You can sort of see the colors there. I don't think I am playing with the opacity yet. Actually, no, I do not actually remember if I used the opacity slider in this, but in some of the later works I was doing that, because it can be kind of tricky to pick out the right color to shade a solid area with. Like, if you have this bold sort of yellow shirt dress thing here, or well, I guess shirt and skirt, then you want to pick colors that are close by. You want them to be a little bit darker and a little bit desaturated, and maybe slightly different hue-wise, but you don't want it to go too far, because it needs to be close, but not too close, because then you won't see the difference. But if it's too far away, then that's just going to look wrong. It's going to look like a completely different object is sort of sitting on top of the shirt. So in order to get around that, what you can do is actually pick a color that is a lot stronger and sort of obviously wrong, but then you really tone down the opacity a lot. So that makes it to match the color underneath a lot better. And that's how you can maybe start with a much darker yellow, but then you put it at like half opacity, and then you draw it on top of the actual yellow dress, and you sort of get a much more toned down, much more useful color that you can use for the shading. Anyhow, you can see me repairing the arm here. I believe I'm okay, just making sure those arms go opposite the legs. So you can see the right leg going back there, and the left arm up at sort of a full position. And now we're at the passing pose, so we are have the arm down and the knee coming up. And one great source for looking at animation is if you've ever had the Preston Blair book. It's this book by this animator who worked for Disney probably back in the 60s, maybe earlier, and has well, it's partly about cartooning, but it's mostly about animation, and it's you've ever been to an animation school, I think it's like one of the standard books they give out there. And one of the things he does is break down the walk cycle into several different poses. So you can see the foot sort of landing here as the landing pose. And then when it comes back, it's passing. And when the foot passes, you have the one knee up and the other foot down. That causes the character to rise up a little bit. And then the knee comes forward, and then it comes down again. And well, those are the basic poses. And you just do that over and over again. And it's just a question of making sure everything matches up. Anyway, I just lost my train of thought there, but if you are interested in cartoon animation, I would definitely recommend picking up the book by Preston Blair. What's it called? It's a classic now. And I'm just looking at my bookshelf, and I don't see it anywhere. But I'll put it down in the description below. But if you just Google any sort of animation book, I'm sure it'll come up because it's like one of the classics. Anyhow, we are going a little bit further. You can see me. We're just doing a lot of cleanup at this point. And I started playing around with the hair at one bit. And if you see the little the ponytail, I think I'm working with that and with the tail on behind her at the same time, trying to get that wave to go up and down at the right point. Because just like the body goes up and down, the tail responds to that. So when the body goes, when the hips go up, the tail goes down. It's sort of like a cause and sort of like a delayed reaction. Then when the hips go back down, the tail sort of suspended in the air and it flips back up again. So that's some of what I'm trying to capture here. And okay, and onto the back. I think this is the third and last walk cycle that we're going through. And it's the same idea here. We start off with the black outline and putting in the solid colors. And then it's a lot of tweaking. Putting in the pants, I guess the shorts, the legs, the boots, and doing that over and over again until we get the shading. Anyhow, it's going to be more of just what we were talking about before. So this is part of a game that I've been off and on building for the last, I guess, maybe 3 or 4 years now. Not that I have a lot accomplished. It's been more of a big learning experience for me. But well, I've learned quite a bit, and someday I will have something. And it's always been a big question in my mind whether I should go the 2D route or the 3D route. I actually find 3D a little bit easier. Maybe it's because I have a bit of a math background. I know a lot of people out there say that the 2D is a lot easier than 3D. And in some ways it is. It is a lot more work in 3D to put a model together. But in 3D, once you have the model done, you just have that one model and you just need to animate it. Whereas with 2D, you have to draw the same picture 20 times, 30 times over and over again. I guess with these small walk cycles, I really only have 6 for each walk cycle, so that's going to be 18 altogether, plus another 3 for the standing drawings. But it's a lot of drawing. And sort of the same thing when you're doing a comic strip. Every time somebody says something new, you have to draw a completely new picture showing them saying it. So it does kind of get repetitive, which is a point in favor of 3D because you can just use the same model over and over again. But part of it too is creating the background and the world. And 2D drawing is tricky. In some ways it's easy. Putting out a sketch is a lot of fun, and it's a lot of fun to color it too. It's a lot of fun to come up with the creative, the imagination, and you can get out a 2D drawing a lot faster than you can get out a 3D model. On the other hand, when you're drawing, First you have to draw your basic sketch, and then if you want to finish it off, you then have to go with the cleanup. Then you have to draw lines over top of it, and then you have to go to the coloring stage. So all told, if you're drawing a picture, you're pretty much drawing the same picture 4 times over, if not more. So that is part of the things you have to think about when you're deciding what art style you want to go ahead with. Anyhow, I've been going off on another tangent there for quite a bit. You can see me working on the boots here, and just going back and forth with more tweaks, and making sure the hair looks right and the ponytail looks right. And okay, let's go back to that tangent I was on. So you might have remembered in a previous video I uploaded where I was doing 3D spriting in the Blender using, what was that, Sprite. And I decided not to really go forwards because I kind of decided that I wasn't really getting a whole lot out of the sprite tool. I mean, yeah, it was kind of fun being able to do these sort of Minecraft-esque shapes, but you are kind of limited to that square grid. And if you know how to use Blender 3D tools, you might as well just do a plane instead of just having sprite sprite your little 16 by 16 or 32 by 32 pictures everywhere. But it also gave me some time to think. I really like the old style, the sort of pixelated style, the sort of cartoony style you see in a lot of the SNES era games. And there's a lot of games still using that style. So I guess I'm sort of like looking for a blend between the two, where you have sort of the cartoony, bold, pixelated look for the sprites, but you also have all the great things you can do with 3D. And yeah, so if you did see those earlier videos where I was using Aseprite, you can see that towards the end of the videos I did kind of deviate from it, away from those rigid straight lines, and just started moving the polygons around so that you could create like organic things like round trees and curved cave roofs. Although, yeah, that's tricky too, because I guess one advantage with having that nice rigid form is that the eye starts to expect that rigid form. And so if you try to do something completely organic, then it's a lot easier to tell that you messed it up, and you can't just say, it's not my fault, it's supposed to be square. Anyhow, I think we are almost done. You can see me just putting the finishing touches on there, and here I am assembling them all into a tile sheet that I was intending to export to an animated editor, to Godot. I eventually decided that this is not actually a good way to export these images to Godot, and I just exported them as individual images, but I think we will see that here. You can see me, this is a quick program I put together in Godot, and here is that animated character walking around, and you can see those walk animations blending seamlessly together and walking around this small tile terrain. This is the terrain from that sprite tile video I was talking about earlier. So there's 2D. I'm playing around with both worlds. I am seeing which ones I like more. If you like it, please remember to like and subscribe to the video. Please, if you'd like to see more game development stuff, please come back. Or if you just like the art or like listening to the sound of my voice, well, there's more of that too. In any case, thanks for watching.